First contact at the edge. The emergency sirens aboard Galactic Confederation Outpost Zenith 7 wailed through the corridors, bathing everything in pulsing crimson light. Commander Ilara Voss, her scaled skin reflecting the red glow in iridescent patterns, stalked across the command center with barely contained agitation. Her four-fingered hands clasped behind her back as she glared at the main view screen. "Report," she demanded, voice carrying the distinctive melodic undertones of the Soran people. Lieutenant Krill, a slender Neuralian with translucent skin revealing the electrical impulses of his nervous system, responded without looking up from his console. "Unknown vessel approaching from the Orion sector, Commander. Configuration matches no known Confederation designs." "Pirates?" Voss asked, mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Negative," Krill replied. "The vessel's energy signature is extraordinary. Power output exceeds anything in our database. They're making no attempt to mask their approach." Voss narrowed her vertical pupils. "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered, revealing a sleek vessel unlike anything Voss had seen in her 2 centuries of service. Where Confederation ships favored organic curves and biomimetic design, this ship had hard angles and geometric precision. Its hull gleamed with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the starlight around it. Most striking were the massive propulsion units, crude by Confederation standards, but radiating power that defied conventional understanding. "It's beautiful," whispered Science Officer Tala, the avian Paravi's feathers rustling with excitement. "It's dangerous," Voss corrected. "Open a communication channel." After several tense moments, the view screen shifted to reveal the bridge of the unknown vessel. Voss involuntarily took a step back. The bridge was staffed by bipedal creatures with hairless faces and forward-facing eyes. Predator eyes. "This is Commander Ilara Voss of Galactic Confederation Outpost Zenith 7. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately." One of the creatures stepped forward. It wore a fitted uniform of deep blue with silver accents, and despite its soft appearance, it carried itself with unmistakable authority. "This is Captain Maya Rise of the Terran Defense Force vessel Horizon. We request permission to approach and establish diplomatic contact." Voss's translator had no difficulty with the language, which was surprising. More surprising was the designation, Terran. The myths were true. "Terran," Voss repeated, unable to keep the disbelief from her voice. "From Earth." Captain Rise nodded, the simple gesture somehow conveying both confirmation and pride. "Yes, Commander. Humanity has finally made it to the stars, and it seems we have neighbors." Throughout the command center, officers exchanged uneasy glances. Earth was a restricted system, quarantined by Confederation decree after early observation missions documented the planet's inhabitants' alarming propensity for violence and technological advancement. The directive had been clear: no contact until they either destroyed themselves or matured beyond their warlike tendencies. Yet here they were, somehow having developed interstellar travel without the quantum-fold technology that formed the backbone of Confederation space travel. "How did you find us?" Voss demanded. "Earth has been under observation, but not contact protocols." A slight smile crossed Captain Rice's face. "We followed your observers home. They weren't as discreet as they thought." The smile faded. "But pleasantries aside, Commander, we've come with a warning. Something is following us. Something that has already destroyed 3 of our outer colonies." Before Voss could respond, Lieutenant Krill called out, "Commander." Multiple spatial distortions detected at the system's edge. The view screen split to show a terrifying sight, space itself seeming to fracture as dozens of obsidian shapes emerged. They resembled no vessels Voss had ever seen. They were more like living shadows, each movement leaving trails of darkness against the stars. "Void swarm," Captain Rice said grimly. "They'd followed us faster than we anticipated." "Void swarm," Voss repeated, but the answer came in the form of weapons fire as the unknown entities launched their attack. The outpost shuddered under the first barrage. Damage reports flooded in from all sectors as the Void Swarm's weapons, beams of what appeared to be concentrated darkness, tore through the outpost's shields with frightening ease. "Return fire," Voss ordered, but the outpost's defensive systems seemed to have minimal effect on the attackers. On the view screen, Captain Rice was shouting orders to her crew. "Commander Voss," she called, "your conventional weapons will be ineffective. The Void Swarm absorbs energy-based attacks. We've developed countermeasures. Permission to assist." Pride warred with practicality in Voss's mind. The Confederation had stood for 10,000 years, dominating the galaxy through technological superiority and biological harmony. To accept help from a quarantine species, especially one as primitive as humans, was unthinkable. Another hit rocked the station, and the environmental systems began to fail. "Permission granted," Voss said through clenched teeth. What happened next would forever change Voss's understanding of the universe. The Terran vessel, significantly smaller than the outpost, moved with unexpected agility, positioning itself between Zenith 7 and the attacking swarm. Instead of energy weapons, the Horizon deployed what appeared to be physical projectiles. Missiles that split into thousands of smaller objects, each emitting a frequency that disrupted the Void Swarm's cohesion. "What are those?" Tala asked, watching in fascination as the swarm entities began to break apart. "Nanite clusters," Captain Rice explained over the comm. "Programmed to target the quantum entanglement that allows the swarm to maintain cohesion across dimensional boundaries." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Confederation tactical records. The human vessel danced through the void with reckless precision, drawing fire away from the crippled outpost while deploying its unusual weapons with devastating effect. Within 30 minutes, the Void Swarm had retreated, leaving behind only dissipating darkness. "They'll be back," Captain Rice said after the immediate danger had passed, "with reinforcements. This was just a scouting party." Voss studied the human captain with new eyes. "You seem well informed about these entities." Rice nodded grimly. "We've been fighting them for 2 years. They appeared at the edges of our solar system shortly after our first successful test of the Alcubierre drive. We believe they're attracted to the spatial distortions our drives create, or perhaps to any species at a certain technological threshold. And you track them here." Voss's tone carried an accusation. "No, Commander," Rice said firmly. "We followed them. They'd been attacking systems throughout this sector. Your outpost is simply the latest target." Hours later, after emergency repairs had stabilized the outpost, Voss reluctantly invited Captain Rice aboard. Security protocols demanded a full delegation and armed escorts, but curiosity demanded a face-to-face meeting. Captain Rice proved to be smaller than Voss had anticipated. Humans were slight creatures, lacking both the protective exoskeletons of the Neuralians or the dense musculature of the Sorans. Yet there was something in their eyes, a determination, perhaps even a ferocity, that belied their fragile appearance. "Your assistance was appreciated," Voss said stiffly as they walked the damaged corridors of Zenith 7. "Just doing what anyone would do," Rice replied, though they both knew that wasn't true. Most species would have seized the opportunity to observe a potential rival's weakness. "Why did you help us?" Voss asked directly. "The Confederation has kept Earth quarantined for centuries. By our laws, we would be justified in destroying your vessel simply for the transgression." Rice stopped walking and turned to face Voss directly. Another surprising human trait, this confrontational stance. "Because the Void Swarm doesn't care about our differences, Commander. They're consuming worlds, human, Confederation, and likely others we haven't even met yet. We track them here because we've been following their destruction patterns, trying to warn whoever might be next." "A noble sentiment," Voss said, not entirely convinced. "Not nobility," Rice corrected. "Survival. Humanity is still new to interstellar travel. We have 11 colony worlds and Earth. The Void Swarm has already taken 3. We need allies, Commander. And after what I've seen of your defenses against them, so do you. The directness was shocking but refreshing. Most Confederation diplomacy involved layers of courtesy and indirect suggestion. The Confederation Council would never approve an alliance with Earth, Voss said. Your species is considered too volatile. Captain Rice smiled, a strangely predatory expression that reminded Voss of the Soren hunting displays. With respect, Commander, I think the Void Swarm may change their minds, especially when they learn that humans are the only species that has successfully driven them back. As if punctuating her words, another alarm sounded. Lieutenant Krill's voice came over the comm. Commander, long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions. Hundreds of Void Swarm signatures, all converging on this sector. Estimated arrival, 18 hours. Reyes and Voss locked eyes, understanding passing between them despite their physiological differences. It seems, Captain, Voss said slowly, that I may need to make an unorthodox report to the Council. And it seems, Commander, Reyes replied, that humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization is going to be a baptism by fire. The battle for tomorrow. The emergency council session was as contentious as Commander Voss had expected. The holographic projections of 19 council members, representatives of the Confederation's founding species, flickered around the conference room of Outpost Zenith 7, their voices raised in overlapping arguments. This is precisely why Earth was quarantined, declared Councillor Drav, his reptilian features contorted in disgust. They'd bring destruction in their wake. The Void Swarm was already moving through this sector, countered Councillor Ely, her bioluminescent tentacles pulsing with emotion. The humans merely detected them first. Throughout the debate, Captain Maya Rice stood silently at Voss's side, her composure unwavering despite the open hostility directed toward her and her species. Only the slight tension in her jaw betrayed any reaction to the proceedings. Finally, after nearly an hour of circular arguments, High Councillor Teth, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, raised a hand for silence. The facts remain, Teth said, voice resonating with the wisdom of 8 centuries. The Void Swarm presents an unprecedented threat to Confederation security, and the humans have demonstrated effective countermeasures. The High Councillor's attention shifted to Captain Reyes. You claim your weapons can disrupt the swarm's cohesion. Yes, Councillor, Reyes responded, stepping forward. Without preamble, she projected technical schematics from her wrist device. The Void Swarm exists partially in our dimension, and partially in what we call subspace. Their physiology, if you can call it that, relies on quantum entanglement to maintain integrity across dimensional boundaries. Our nanite clusters generate interference fields that sever these connections. Primitive but effective, assessed Councillor John, the collective consciousness of a silicon-based hive mind. Yet your schematics indicate limited range and quantity. You cannot possibly have enough to counter the approaching force. That's why we need the Confederation's help, Reyes acknowledged. We have the design, but limited production capacity. With your manufacturing capabilities, we could produce enough to defend this sector and give humans access to our industrial complexes. Drav scoffed. Absurd. Commander Voss stepped forward. With respect, councillors, we have 16 hours before the swarm arrives. We can continue this debate until they destroy this outpost and move on to Confederate worlds, or we can act. The council chambers fell silent. It was High Councillor Teth who finally spoke. Very well. A provisional alliance is authorized, limited to the current crisis. Commander Voss will coordinate with Captain Reyes. The nearby Confederation worlds will provide manufacturing support under strict supervision. As the council session ended, Voss turned to find Captain Reyes already coordinating with her ship. The human's efficiency was admirable, if somewhat alarming. Your counsel is not what I expected, Reyes commented as they walked briskly toward the command center. I thought a civilization as advanced as yours would be more unified, Voss supplied. Even after 10 millennia of cooperation, the member species retain their individual perspectives. Unity does not require uniformity, Captain. Maya, the human, corrected. If we're going to fight together, we might as well use names instead of titles. The next 15 hours were a flurry of activity. Confederation manufacturing hubs on 3 nearby worlds began producing the human-designed nanite clusters according to Reyes' specifications. Meanwhile, the crew of the Horizon integrated their targeting systems with Zenith 7's defenses, creating a hybridized network that neither species could have developed alone. During a rare quiet moment, Voss found Reyes in the outpost observation dome, staring out at the stars. The human looked smaller without her uniform jacket, more vulnerable. "Your species continues to surprise me," Voss admitted, joining her at the viewport. "Our study suggested humans would be more difficult." Reyes laughed, a sound that Voss found strangely pleasant. "Oh, we are. Stubborn, fractious, argumentative. We're all of those things. But we're also adaptive. When the Void Swarm attacked our colonies, Earth's nations set aside centuries of conflict to face the common threat. A common response among threatened species," Voss observed. "Perhaps," Reyes conceded, "but I think there's something more to it. Humans have always looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Finding out we're not, even under these circumstances, fulfills something deep in our collective psyche." Before Voss could respond, the alert sounded. Lieutenant Krill's voice came over the comm. "Commander, Captain, they're here." The Void Swarm arrived not in dozens, but in hundreds, tearing into reality like wounds in the fabric of space. The outpost's enhanced sensors revealed what previous encounters had missed. Each swarm entity was not a ship but a living organism, its body a perfect blend of matter and energy that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions. "All defensive systems online," reported Krill as Voss and Reyes entered the command center. "Confederation reinforcements are holding position at the designated coordinates." The battle plan was elegant in its simplicity. The outpost and the Horizon would serve as bait, drawing the swarm into a specific engagement zone. There, the Confederation vessels would deploy the nanite clusters in coordinated waves, disrupting the swarm's dimensional cohesion. In theory, it should work. In practice, they're adapting, Reyes said grimly as the first wave of nanites produced only limited effects. "They've encountered this weapon before and developed resistance." Voss felt ice in her blood. "If the nanites fail—" "They won't," Reyes interrupted, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "We just need to modify the interference frequency. Lieutenant Krill, can you analyze the swarm's quantum signature and identify the shift in their entanglement pattern?" The Neuralian worked with incredible speed, his translucent fingers dancing over the controls as his nervous system processed information at rates no human could match. "Pattern identified," he announced after several tense moments, transmitting to the Horizon for recalibration. The modified nanites proved effective, but the battle remained desperate. For every swarm entity they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The outpost shuddered under repeated attacks, and 3 Confederation vessels were lost in the first hour. "We need something more," Voss said, watching as the tactical situation deteriorated. "At this rate, we'll exhaust our nanite supply before we make a significant dent in their numbers." Reyes had been quiet for several minutes, her focus intense as she studied the battle patterns. Now, as she looked up, her eyes bright with what Voss had come to recognize as the human expression of inspiration. "They're connected," Reyes said suddenly, "not just individually across dimensions, but to each other. A network. That's how they coordinate so perfectly." "A hive mind?" Voss asked, the concept familiar from species like the Jean. "Not exactly," Reyes replied. "More like quantum resonance. Each entity vibrates at precisely the same frequency, allowing instantaneous communication regardless of distance." She turned to Krill. "If we modify our remaining nanites to target not just individual entities, but the resonance frequency itself, we could disrupt the entire swarm simultaneously." Krill finished, already making the calculations. "It's possible, but we would need a delivery mechanism capable of dispersing the nanites across the entire engagement zone instantly. Voss saw the solution immediately, though she wished she hadn't. The outpost's reactor core. Reyes nodded grimly. If we overload it and seed the explosion with the modified nanites, the resulting quantum pulse would carry the disruption effect throughout the battle zone, Voss concluded. But Zenith 7 would be destroyed in the process. Not necessarily, Reyes said, that predatory smile returning to her face. Not if we use the Horizon instead. The argument that followed was brief but intense. Reyes insisted that the Horizon's more compact antimatter reactor would produce a more focused pulse, while requiring fewer nanites. Voss countered that sacrificing Earth's first interstellar vessel was politically untenable. My ship, my call, Reyes said finally, ending the debate. Besides, the Horizon's crew can evacuate to Zenith 7. The ship is replaceable. This outpost and its personnel are not. The evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency, a testament to human emergency protocols. Within 30 minutes, the Horizon was operating on a skeleton crew of volunteers, its reactor primed for overload, and its holds filled with the remaining nanite clusters. Approaching optimal position. Reyes reported from the Horizon's bridge, her image slightly distorted by increasing interference. Nanite dispersal mechanisms ready. Reactor overload in 3 minutes. Voss watched from Zenith 7's command center, a strange emotion constricting her chest. Captain, Maya, the Confederation will not forget this sacrifice. Reyes smiled, and for the first time, Voss saw no predatory edge in the expression, only determined acceptance. Just make sure Earth is welcomed into the galactic community, Commander. We've earned our place at the table. The Horizon dove into the heart of the swarm, engines pushing beyond safe parameters as it weaved through the attacking entities. When it reached the calculated epicenter, there was a moment of perfect stillness. Then a blinding flash as the antimatter containment field collapsed. The explosion itself was almost anticlimactic. A sphere of pure energy that expanded outward, laced with billions of nanites programmed to target the swarm's quantum resonance. Where the pulse touched the void entities, they simply unraveled, their multidimensional forms collapsing as their quantum cohesion failed. Within moments, the battle was over. Where hundreds of void swarm entities had swarmed, only dissipating energy remained. And the Horizon was gone. 3 days later, as Confederation recovery vessels assisted with Zenith 7's repairs, a small ship appeared at the edge of the system. Its design was crude by Confederation standards. Clearly a human escape pod modified for short-range interstellar travel. When it docked with the outpost, the airlock opened to reveal Captain Maya Reyes, scorched and exhausted, but very much alive. You survived, Voss said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Ejected in the backup command module just before detonation, Reyes explained with a shrug. Calculated risk. Reckless, Voss corrected, but without heat. Human, Reyes countered with a tired smile. 1 week later, the Confederation Council convened again, this time with Captain Reyes officially invited to speak. Her testimony, combined with the battle records from Zenith 7, led to an unprecedented decision. Earth's quarantine status was formally revoked, and humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Confederation. As the session concluded, High Counselor Teth approached Reyes privately. Your actions have saved countless lives across the Confederation, Captain. Yet I sense this is not the end of the Void Swarm threat. No, Reyes agreed solemnly. They'll be back, likely with new adaptations to our weapons, but next time, we'll face them together. Commander Voss, watching from nearby, felt a strange certainty that the galaxy had irrevocably changed, not just because of the Void Swarm's emergence, but because of humanity's arrival on the interstellar stage. These fragile, reckless, brilliant beings had accomplished in days what the Confederation had failed to do in centuries of measured diplomacy and technological advancement. They had united disparate species against a common threat through sheer determination, and a willingness to sacrifice. Perhaps, Voss reflected, this was why the ancient Confederation founders had quarantined Earth in the first place. Not because humans were too dangerous to join galactic society, but because they would inevitably transform it.